If you have high frequency hearing loss, there's one mistake that almost guarantees you'll think your hearing aids don't work for you. And most people make this mistake. They don't realize they're doing it, and their provider may not explain it clearly, but months later, they're frustrated and exhausted. If you have high frequency hearing loss, there's one thing you absolutely should not do. I'm Dr. Shana Stapleton, audiologist, and this is a mistake that I see every week in clinic.
Section 1. First, what high-frequency hearing loss actually means. Let's clarify something. High-frequency hearing loss does not mean everything is quiet. It means specific sounds are missing. High-pitched consonants, S, F, T, H, S, H, T. Those sounds carry clarity, not volume. Clarity. That's why people say, I can hear you talking, I just can't understand you. Your brain is filling in gaps, and it gets tired. Now here's where people go wrong. Section 2, the big mistake. If you have high-frequency hearing loss, don't just turn the volume up. This seems obvious, but it's the most common mistake. People think, I just need it louder. But here's the problem. Your low frequencies are often still decent, so when you increase overall volume, what happens? Low frequencies get louder, high frequencies may still not be clear enough. Background noise increases, voices feel sharp, everything becomes overwhelming. You don't need more sound, you need targeted sound. Turning everything up creates distortion and listening fatigue. And then people conclude, hearing aids don't work for me. That's not true. They were just adjusted incorrectly. Section 3, don't choose. Power over precision. This is mistake number 2. People with high-frequency hearing loss often think, I need the most powerful hearing aid. Not necessarily. High-frequency loss requires precision amplification. If the dome is too open, high frequencies may escape. You lose clarity. If the dome is too closed, you may feel plugged. Low frequencies may become boomy. If the receiver isn't strong enough, high frequencies won't be delivered clearly. But if it's too strong, you risk distortion or discomfort. It's not about buying the best or the strongest. It's about matching the device to your exact configuration. And this is where real ear measurements matter, because programming software alone is not enough. Section 4, don't ignore the sharp phase. Here's something important. When high frequencies are restored for the first time, they can sound sharp, tinny, metallic, too crisp. That does not automatically mean something is wrong. Your brain hasn't heard those sounds clearly in years. It needs time to recalibrate. But here's the key. There's a difference between temporary sharpness and persistent discomfort. If it's still painful or unbearable after adjustments and a reasonable adaptation period, it needs refinement. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. Did you turn your hearing aids down in the first week because they sounded sharp? Because if you did, you may have reduced the very clarity your brain was trying to relearn. You may have permanently reduced your clarity. This is where patience plus fine-tuning matter, and many people never realize that. Section 5, don't judge them in quiet rooms. This is huge, and this is where many people quietly decide they don't need hearing aids. People test them at home in silence. They sit in a quiet living room and think, these sound strange. Or worse, I don't really notice a difference. And that's the trap. High-frequency hearing loss doesn't always show up in silence. In quiet rooms, your brain compensates. There's no competing noise, no overlapping voices, no rapid speech, so you assume, I'm fine. But here's what most people don't realize. Quiet environments are not where hearing aids prove their value, especially for high-frequency hearing loss. They're where your brain relearns sound. High-frequency hearing aids restore consonant speech, sounds your brain hasn't heard clearly in years. In quiet rooms, your brain can practice identifying those sounds again without background competition. It's like physical therapy. You don't start rehab by running a marathon. You rebuild in controlled conditions first. If you only wear your hearing aids in noisy restaurants, your brain never gets that controlled practice. And then noisy environments feel overwhelming. But if you wear them consistently and quiet, even when you don't feel like you need them, your auditory system recalibrates. Neural pathways strengthen. Speech mapping improves. Clarity stabilizes. So when you walk into a restaurant later, your brain is ready. This is why consistent wear in quiet environments actually increases benefit in noisy ones. So don't judge them in quiet rooms, but do wear them there. That's where adaptation begins, and adaptation is what unlocks clarity when it really matters. Section 6, the hidden mistake. Here's the mistake that quietly ruins outcomes. People lower wear time because it feels different. They wear them for 1 hour. Take them out. Try again tomorrow. Repeat. The brain never fully adapts. High-frequency restoration requires consistent exposure. Your auditory cortex needs repetition. If wear time stays inconsistent, clarity never stabilizes. And then people say, I tried them. They just weren't for me. But adaptation never had a chance. Section 7, what you should do instead. If you have high-frequency hearing loss, make sure real ear measurements were performed. Allow time for adaptation, but communicate specific discomfort. Test them in real-world environments. Focus on clarity improvement, not just loudness. Wear them consistently during the adjustment period. High-frequency loss is one of the most common patterns I see. And when fit correctly, it's also one of the most rewarding to treat because clarity can improve dramatically.
If you have high-frequency hearing loss, don't sabotage your own clarity by chasing volume instead of precision. Don't just turn everything down the very first week. Don't judge them in quiet situations. Don't assume sharp means wrong. Hearing aids for this type of hearing loss are not about making the world louder. They're about restoring missing pieces of speech. And when it's done correctly, conversations stop feeling exhausting. The mistake isn't high-frequency hearing loss. It's treating it like a volume problem, and that difference changes everything.